Hello, and thank you so much for joining me today for another thought from the Bible. Just an opportunity to dig into this incredible book in 10 minutes together each week to find some encouragement and guidance, maybe to look at something from these pages in a slightly different way for the first time, so that we can live our lives for the glory of God. Well, I'm been back here in Liberia now for 2 weeks, I think it is. That time's been a bit of a blur. I don't know about you, or if it's just me, but time seems to be passing very, very quickly these days. The 2 months that my husband Dave and I had in the UK seem to pass by just in a blur, and already the time here in West Africa seems to be flying by as well. But you know, I'd been really kind of excited about getting back here because the time that we had in the UK, while amazing, was incredibly busy. I was speaking and preaching in different places and shopping for coming back here and having medical checks and all of those things that fill up the time very rapidly. And it didn't really give me much chance to think about future projects, about what would come next for me, about how to go about launching my first Bible study book, which is finished, and I just need to work out how to publish it and get it out there. There was an expectation, I think, that I would come back to Liberia and I would have time. Reality doesn't always quite work like that though, does it? I should have remembered that doing everything here tends to take a little bit longer than I'd expected. You know, the first couple of weeks have been really busy, and yet I can't really tell you with what. Things like shopping and restocking the cupboards with food and getting the car fixed which had broken while we were away, and cooking meals from scratch and making bread and making things to restock the freezer with so we'll have easy meal options, and all of those things that take far more time than you would expect them to. And it led to a moment of frustration, if I'm honest, where I was thinking, when am I ever going to have time to work this out? When am I ever going to have time to do the actual work? This only 2 weeks in, of course. But as I felt that moment of frustration, I remembered something that a friend spoke to me while we were in the UK. So he gave me 3 words from Psalm chapter 23, and I would like to unpack those 3 words with you today, because I genuinely feel that if we can get to grips with this concept, then it can revolutionize the way that we seek guidance and leading from our wonderful, wonderful God. This is how Psalm 23 starts. It says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake." Within these first few verses of Psalm 23, there is a 3-step process for seeking direction and leading from God in our lives. The first step is recognizing God's presence with us. The Lord is my shepherd, it says, the one who provides absolutely everything that I need, with whom I lack nothing, the one who leads me to a pleasant place, not impersonally, not sending an angel to do it, not handing me a map and letting me get on with it on my own, but personally guiding me, even making me stop in green pastures, ready for that second step, which is that we rest. We lie down in the green pastures. We take a gentle stroll beside the quiet waters, following God's leading for a moment of peace and tranquility amidst the madness of the day. Only then do we come to the third part. We receive guidance. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. He will guide us, but that step comes after soaking in his presence, and it comes after a time of rest. But we often don't want that. We want the guidance first. We start running and we're kind of hoping that the path will materialize in front of us without stopping to rest and to listen to what God may be saying to us. That's exactly what I did, jumping straight back into the busyness, rushing from thing to thing, and feeling frustrated at God not delivering a nice 5-point strategy for what the next year is exactly going to look like. And yet, even if God had wanted to lead me and guide me in that way and provide me with that kind of a detailed level of strategy, not that that's the way he typically leads from my experience, but even if he had wanted to this time, when would he possibly have had chance to give it to me as I rushed on to the next thing which needed doing and didn't stop to listen to what he had to say? We need to learn the art of stopping. We need to learn the art of rest. And this strategy, this process comes up time and time again throughout the pages of the Bible. In that famous passage in Matthew chapter 11, Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Come to me. Enter into my presence, spend time with me, learn from me, experience my love, even when you feel overwhelmed and wearied and burdened. And from that place of God's presence with you, you will find rest. And out of that rest, that is when the guidance comes. Take my yoke upon you, Jesus said, and learn from me. That learning from Christ himself, the recognizing what we should be carrying and what we should be setting down in our lives, that comes out of a place of rest, which comes out of his presence in us. Presence, rest, direction. And we find that same strategy in the Old Testament too. My presence will go with you, the Lord said to Moses in Exodus chapter 33 as the Israelites were considering their next steps into the promised land. My presence will go with you and I will give you rest. Out of God's presence, bringing supernatural rest, the Israelites would know which way to turn when they arrived. They would know the plan for conquering the city of Jericho. They would know how to cross the Jordan River. They would know their next steps, but it would come out of God's presence and out of that place of rest. And you know, it didn't stop them making mistakes. In fact, once they'd received that guidance, they completely turned away from it and decided to do their own thing. It doesn't stop us making mistakes either, but it is the best place to start if we are seeking direction from God. We need to make room for God's presence. We need to rest in him and we need to be open because his direction will come. He will guide you along the right paths. I know that because he doesn't promise in Psalm chapter 23 that he's going to guide us because we've been so good that we've earned it. He doesn't promise to guide us because we're anything particularly special, because of anything that we've done. He promises to guide us for his own name's sake. The name which is above every other name, the name which is higher than all things, the name we can count on absolutely. For the sake of that name, God will always guide us. when we enter into his presence, when we stop and we pause and we rest and we listen. And I understand life is busy, right? It's not always easy. But if you are struggling right now with a lack of direction, if you're asking God for guidance, if you don't know which way to turn in your life, then this is where you need to start. Even if you only have 5 minutes today, even if you only have 1 minute, take that time to stop and welcome his presence and rest in him and expect his guidance to lead you along the very best paths for your life. That guidance might come in different ways. It may not be an audible booming voice from the sky. It may be just a gentle leading as you go through your day, but it will come. It will come from that place of rest. And isn't that wonderful that that's where guidance is born from? Not out of something arduous and strenuous and hard, but from a place of rest and refreshing. Even if nothing came out of it, even if there was no guidance, that would still be worth doing. Rest is so important for us. Well, thank you so much for joining me today for that thought from the Bible, from a familiar psalm. I hope that that was an encouragement to you. I'll be back on Wednesday next week with another thought from this incredible book, so I will see you then.